I'm a little bit excited. Sunday afternoon, the family have all left, the kids are going motorbike riding, my wife's going shopping, and it's time to get creative. Can't wait. Let's get stuck into that lovely overhanging mushroom-shaped rock line. Now, for a little while I've been kind of pondering, how am I going to make the basic formwork? And I thought, oh yeah, I have to go out the work shed and make up a formwork and get some plywood and some PVC stripping and bend it into shape and make it. Oh, hang on a minute, I've got the perfect formwork right here. So check this out. What I figured is, if I build the rock down here, I can actually just shift the whole rock structure up to the top. It'll have pretty much the same curve, and so I'm guaranteed to get the nice shape without having to frig around with a form over in the work shed somewhere. So I'm making the most of what I've got here at the moment. I want to try and make the shape a little bit accentuated. I don't want to look crazy and comic-like, but I do want to have a fairly good overhang, because by the time I actually build out the remainder of the rock work and add corals to it, if the overhang is not substantial enough, it's going to get, not hidden, but it's going to get overwhelmed by the rest of the aquascaping. So I need to make sure I've got plenty of overhang in the mould. That way, down the track, it'll still stand out and be a feature in the aquarium. If you haven't seen my video in constructing artificial rocks, there it is up there. Go and check that one out. So I've used a 1 part perlite to 1 part shell grit to 1 part fine white sand, my 3 aggregates, to 1 part of white cement, and then roughly 1 part of water. So guys, there's 3 times in this build I'm going to ask for your help, and this is one of the times. I would love to hear from you guys as to what you think should be the colour backdrop to my Palau Reef inspired paludarium. I'm talking about the colour that goes across the back wall of the aquarium. Not so much that's going to be around this actual island structure, because that island structure is going to be, let's just say there's a lot more aquascaping to come. Being a very large aquarium, I've learnt something. Light colours and that lovely frosted kind of effect, they just don't work. Maintenance in the way of cleaning of algae off the back. An aquarium this size, well, that kind of maintenance is going to be a little bit tricky. So I do feel as though a dark colour is going to be better. Black, navy, indigo, or maybe some sort of a two-tone effect. I love that appearance of those shallow waters where you get that blue that comes up and you get that kind of airbrush effect where it comes up to more of a white near the water's surface. Or is that going to look a bit too daggy? What do you guys think? Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to mark the position of the bulkhead fittings for the overflow weir. I've marked my bottom line here, which indicates the internal level of the weir box. I've marked this top line across here horizontally, and that represents a top of the water going into the weir box, so the overflow level. These lines here are my actual joist lines. It's very important to mark those, because there's no point trying to do up the rear side of a bulkhead fitting when there's a joist in the way in the back of the aquarium. So you have to make sure that the flange on these bulkhead fittings is well and truly out of the way of the joists. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2 50mm bulkheads over this side with an elbow facing up. I'll have one there and one here. Those elbows will face up. I'll have a little strainer on the top, and they'll be my emergency overflows, you might say. Then with no elbow, I'm going to place 1, 2, 3 32mm bulkheads, which on the rear side will have elbows and valves so I can throttle the flow, make sure that they're submerged the whole time, and they will be my submerged siphons. So I've got to mark the positions and then start hole sawing. One thing you want to do is make sure that you actually judge the size of the hole saw correctly for the bulkhead that you're using. So for example, this is my 50mm bulkhead hole saw. This is a 32mm bulkhead. Obviously that hole would certainly allow for the passage of that thread of the bulkhead to go through it, but there's a lot of movement there, a lot of excess movement, and you want a bulkhead to have a nice secure fitting and not rely too much on the actual flange and the gaskets to get that good seating. So you want to make the hole as snug as possible for the bulkhead to pass through it. So I'm just trying to figure out how to actually fix the shelf of the weir box in place. You can see I've actually given this whole area a really good sand down and a clean off. I finally got enough coats of epoxy onto these 2 pieces of plywood. This is the shelf piece to go in the bottom of the weir box. That's the front of the weir box. This is the inside. Still got the black dags around the outside there, but I'm not too worried about that because it's going to need another coat of epoxy once it's in place. I'll probably just pour that in and make the self-leveling component of it spread itself out. It'll be white, so it'll cover over all that anyhow. But what I'm actually thinking is I've made this pretty tight. So I'm thinking that that's pretty tight, but I'm thinking I can convince it with a mallet to get down into the right position. And then all I've got to do is just seal this internal corner all the way around. Probably a good time now to say thank you again to Boatcraft Pacific for supplying me with the boat coat epoxy and filler powder, which I'm using right now to actually construct this epoxy putty. We're very, very grateful for those guys coming on board as sponsors of the project and allowing me the opportunity to use their products and create this pretty amazing paludarium. So thank you very much, Boatcraft Pacific. Still might put a little bit more in that if I do want to be a stiff mix that I can actually screed properly. That's better. Now that's actually becoming a little bit harder to actually stir. So that's quite stiff now. So now what I'm going to do is try and press it to find my little silicone beveling tool, and I can press it around the edges there and push it down into the actual joint. Actually got a difference in height between the weir box, which sets the standing water level in the aquarium, and the top of the island. And that is about 10, actually it's not about, it's exactly 10 centimeters. And the reason I've done that is because this area here is the difference in water level that I expect to occur when I had those Carlson surge devices coming in. And so I want to make sure the water doesn't overflow and go into my dry island area and flood those plants. And also this 10 centimeter area is going to be the section which we have the overhanging rock line. So I finally know how to do it. I finally know how to use boat coat epoxy and the filler powder to make a good strong epoxy glue. The secret, believe it or not, is to trust in the process and put a lot more filler powder in than what you think is necessary. And no, it will not go off like a great big glob in the jug, which is what I was worried about. And so now I'm going to show you exactly how much filler powder I put in when I start to glue my rock island shapes around the waterline of my island. My rock island shapes. My DIY rock shapes around the waterline of my rock island. Better. Now, because I've got a lot of gluing to do, I picked up myself a 2.2 kilo bag or a 2.5 kilo bag of the filler powder from my Harbourside Chandlery, my marina supply store down Coffs Harbour. Don't forget guys that you can actually purchase all of the Boatcraft Pacific products on their website, which is boatcraft.com.au, and I think I'm probably going to need all of this filler powder by the time I do all the aquascaping I plan to do in this 4,000 litre tank. Let's get mixing. You're back. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share around this video. And ideally, give me that comment. Give me that comment what you think will be the ideal backdrop colour for this aquarium. YouTube apparently loves to have some engagement from the audience. An old bloke like me can learn a few new things, and it's those likes, those shares, and those comments which means a lot to me as a YouTuber with training wheels on. So do that for me, that would be much appreciated. And let's continue on with this artistic creation and see how much I learned from high school art. We'll reconvene.